haven't been a part of these, what we're liking to do every day is talk about what's going on here in Washington, and especially what's in the reconciliation bill. My biggest concern is when I watched Speaker Pelosi before said you had to pass the bill to know what's in it. This bill is thousands of pages. It's changing every day, but people talk about it being transformative. It would be transformative, but it would transform a lot of damage to, which I believe some of the hardest working people in America, and especially in small business. We've talked about the 87,000 IRS agents they want to hire just to go after individuals. And it's not just businesses. It'd go after anyone who had $10,000 throughout the year. So that means if you made or spent $28 a day, you're part of the target. Today, we want to talk about small businesses, and especially what does that do in the individual tax rates, the challenge for small business. I've got amazing members who are here who either serve on Ways and Means, from financial services to small business committee. We've got a couple small business owners here. We also have a few, one of my favorite barbecue places, the Salties in Bakersfield. Love it dearly. But I remember when you were working in another restaurant and going to take that risk to invest in the Salties, and you just took off. You had a good product. And many of you just joining, when I was 20 years old, I started a deli in Bakersfield, California. And there's 3 lessons I learned. The first was I was the first to work, I was the last to leave, and I was last to be paid. But it was really rewarding, but there were a lot of challenges. And I just can't imagine being a small business owner going through the pandemic where government's picking and choosing who the winners or losers because who can be open and who couldn't. In California, it would seem more onerous in many of the times. But in this bill, you would think they would look to help small business instead of harm them. And I think anytime you punish something, it actually puts more damage to you. And during this time, and we'd love to have it just open a conversation with everybody. We're actually in Washington, D.C., and I appreciate both of you coming all the way here to be a part of it, and everybody on the Zoom as well. We may be voting in between, but we'll always be here still discussing. Some will go out and some will come back. The nice thing is the chambers is pretty close by. But I'd like to open up and start with Blaine. Blaine, you have been in business. You understand the banking community with capital. You sit at one of the top when it comes to financial services, but you're the ranker when it comes to the Small Business Committee. And what's great to have Joe here is this is Small Business Week for veteran-owned businesses, and you're doing a roundtable on that too. But why don't you talk a little bit about the challenges, what you see with reconciliation and others. You might want to move that mic around right there.
Thank you, Kevin. And we are having this is National Veteran Small Business Week, and we're having a showcase and roundtable on Thursday, and excited about the opportunity to showcase some veteran businesses, small businesses, and representing different associations around the country, and showing the great strides that small businesses can take with veterans because of the discipline of being in the military. Those guys are very, very disciplined about how they open businesses and how they get to work the businesses. But there's a whole myriad of problems with small businesses today. And this bill is chock full of them from the standpoint of the taxes, whether it's individual rates, whether it's and some of the stuff is coming out, but maybe sitting on the back bench and getting ready to go back in. So as Kevin Brady, our Ways and Means, talked about this morning, we just need to be ready to respond whenever things come back in. And I think, the pass-through deduction is a big deal for small businesses. You're looking at labor standards, which is a problem for some small businesses. Inheritance taxes are a big deal for small businesses. And when small businesses, in fact, farmers are small businesses. And so inheritance tax, the stepped-up basis for inheritance, is devastating to farmers. So all of these things by themselves are bad. When you put them all together, it's devastating. Within the bill also, there's a provision kind of in and out as well to give direct lending authority to SBA to set up a new program. Well, SBA, over the last several months here, as a result of the PPP program and all of the things that have gone on around that, the IG has come in and done a very thorough report, an investigation into them, and we found that one of their programs is the EIDL program, the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan Program, has got a fraud rate of almost 30%. And so as a result, we're very concerned about a new direct lending program when they showed that this direct lending program, which is EIDL, is under their total control versus the PPP program, which they use the banks and other financial institutions as a third party to be able to administer these funds. And the template then is that the banks were able, because of their Know Your Customer law, to do this correctly and didn't have the fraud problems that we have now with the EIDL program. Yes, there was a few, but nothing compared to 30% of the program. So my concern is with this new lending program in this bill, we're sitting there getting ready to, again, throw money off of a bridge here, and it's disastrous in my mind. So this thing is fraught with all sorts of problems. You know, besides all of that, we have vaccine mandates, which are a huge issue for our small businesses. Inflation is a big issue for our businesses. Trade and supply chains are big issues. None of those things are addressed in this, and are all issues that the administration continues to flounder on and cause problems for our small businesses. So employees, I'm sure these guys are going to talk about employee problems. And where in this bill is that solved? It probably is exacerbated from the standpoint of the child tax credit. We talk about the unemployment taxes as being a disincentive for people to work, or checks being a disincentive for people to work. But we, this past summer, had a rental assistance program. That's a disincentive for people to go to work if you're going to have somebody pay your rental bill or your rent every month.
The work requirement in this.
Yeah.
So, and really, because it's such a low dollar figure, it's the small business owner that's going to get harmed. And when they spend these trillions of dollars, the inflation that they're watching time and again. Jackie, you serve on Ways and Means, so you watch what tax provisions really matter, especially with capital and others. And you've studied this bill quite a bit. What are you seeing out there?
Well, thanks, Kevin, and thanks for doing this today. I appreciate it. You know, the Democrats' tax hikes and regulations on any small business while paying people not to work, and we just mentioned this, and Blaine just mentioned this idea of a labor shortage. I see this, I'm the ranking member of the Ways and Means Worker and Family Support Subcommittee, so we look at families working and supporting families, getting people back on their feet so they can go and actually hold a job, provide for their family, and build the American dream. What's happened with this loss of work ethic, I think, has been more destructive than anything else that we've seen on this paper. This is the first time in our country that we are literally saying to the American people, set your expectations lower. President Biden said that last week to this whole country, don't expect high standards. And they're saying to the American people, you don't have to work. You know, we use the governor leverage in this country to be able to move back and shut down the unextended federal unemployment benefit around the country, and it helped us turn something back that was destroying the country. But the lack of work ethic in the pieces of these bills where, you know, the IRS is starting to become a welfare tax agency where they're just depositing money into people's account per child that you have, taking the child tax credit and totally turning it on its head, upside down, and destroying the work ethic. You know, I know you're going to tell us how many people you've interviewed or they haven't come, how many people, jobs that you have, and how employees are dictating to you the ways that they will work and not work, because it's happening in our districts and we hear it too. But it's devastating if you've lost all your tax incentives to actually hold your business together, pay out of your left pocket and your right pocket what Uncle Sam is not going to extrude from every small business, and then basically take what is meant to be a great incentive, taking care of vulnerable kids when their parents are trying to get back to work and those kinds of things, and taking it and turning that credit on its head to where it doesn't even benefit the people that we're trying to benefit. So I would say the work ethic and the labor shortage on top of everything else are the most dangerous, because this president is modeling to the American people and to young people, no need to work anymore in this country. If you don't want to, we're just going to download checks from the IRS into your savings account, into your checking account. And for us to repeal taxes, we can do that when we get the House next November. For us to go and right some of this wrong, we can do that with Speaker Kevin McCarthy. We can do that, and we will do that. But to change the work ethic in this country against all of generations, and the greatest generation that's retiring and literally leaving the earth right now, we've got work for every one of us, every one of the American people that want to join that. We've got to believe in work in this country, that it's a good thing, and that we're going to continue to do that and go forward. That'll take everybody.
Fred, you started, you understand work ethic probably better than anybody. You started on dirt floors and worked your way up, ran a company, and now sitting in Congress. Tell us what you're seeing.
Thank you, Leader, for hosting this, and I want to thank all our guests for joining us today. And it is true. Why did I get into politics? And I'll tell you why I did. Because I was that poor kid by today's standards, would be described as at risk or disadvantaged. You know, we were just poor. And we learned that if you work hard and you get an education, you can succeed. You know, I started working in a factory when I was right out of high school. And the company I worked for, then I bought lumber all across the United States and parts of Canada and was able to do that. And then I managed, as you mentioned, Kevin, a factory of $50 million a year budget, and understand what it is when you have people that are working and coming to work every day and making that business a success. Yet, we look at an administration and the speaker who want to control how you earn your money and how you spend your money. And whoever controls more of your money controls more of your actions, whether it's your business or your private life. So think about this. They're doing it with inflation, with taxes, and with high energy costs. And that's eating up more of your dollar. And really, if we want to build back better, the government can't do it. It doesn't work that way. And it was proven with President Kennedy and President Reagan and President Trump. When you let people keep more of their own money, the American people are very smart and talented, and they will figure out how to do it in their small businesses. And when you look at what's in this bill, I mean, Pennsylvania, largest industry in PA 12 and in our state is agriculture, and they're going to tax cows. They're going to tax cows. They're going to tax the pass-throughs, which is going to affect the small businesses that are here. A friend of mine, Larry Allison from Williamsport, does business all across the country. A great guy. Hi, Larry. I can't see him on the thing here, but really an outstanding individual that understands and gets it. And now we're weaponizing OSHA, because they think, having worked in a factory and run that business, I know business owners care about the people that come to work every day, because I knew they cared about me when I was working in that factory. I have all my fingers. I ran a Ripsaw. I have all my fingers. We cared about safety. We want our employees to be safe, and the employees care about their employer. And when the president comes out with these mandates for vaccines and gets frustrated with Americans. Think about this. We got an American president that's frustrated with 80 million Americans. I tell you what, he needs to get half as frustrated with Russia and China and the Taliban. Because if he cared about our environment, I'll go to energy, he wouldn't say no to a U.S. pipeline and yes to a Russia pipeline. He wouldn't say no to energy development in the United States of America and then call OPEC and say, send us more oil, because we produce it more cleanly than anybody else. So, Mr. President, if you care about the environment, care about the ingenuity and the thoughtfulness of the American people. That's who I believe in. So with that, I will yield back, Leader, and I thank you for having us.
You should go run and vote, too. Kevin, now...
I will listen to you.
Kevin, before you were here, you would have been one of our guests, because you were running a small business. You were running McDonald's. You knew what it was like to hire somebody, what it's to get the workforce there, what's to invest, and the challenge. You had McDonald's even going through the pandemic as well.
I did. And, this is... thank you. This is a real honor to be here, Leader. I ran on the very idea of getting government out of the way, allowing job creators to put Americans to work. And I've said that, I've stayed true to that this entire time. Before coming to Congress 3 years ago, I spent 35 years in small businesses. McDonald's restaurants for 35 years, banking still, banking technology, real estate development, agriculture, the list goes on, manufacturing companies. And what I saw firsthand is, and I've preached this so much, is that your biggest competitor in America, unfortunately today, is the federal government. And recently I joined a lawsuit with the Job Creators Network against the vaccine mandate. I think that you as entrepreneurs, your CEOs, your companies, understand their people, and if that's what they want to do in the private industry, then they'll deal with the outcome of that based on their employee base. But to have the federal government do this incredible overreach is something that's it's a march toward communism. This is the whole idea of socialism, is that the government takes over all production, and that's the step forward we're seeing. And what they're doing, I know that Democrats know that in their district, small business, to be associated with small business is so important, because I also am the co-chair of the Small Business Caucus, and there are about 75 members on there, and as I've shared with many of the industry folks, every single Democrat on that Small Business Caucus goes back to their district and tells how much they love small businesses, probably tell you all the same stuff, but come up here and vote for policies that are against small business every single time. And I know Blaine has seen that on his committee as well. They sit up there and they talk a great game, they understand the importance, and then go vote against small business time and time again. And so, when you look at what's happening right now with this bill that's coming out and the impact on small business, you think about what this one vote, this one bill is going to do. There's much talked about the cost of the bill, how we're going to move it back and forth to get it where it fits in some budget window. But If you think about it, it's $1.2 trillion of new taxes on job creators and $400 billion specifically on small businesses in America. Actively engaging and disrupting the labor markets with all the stay-at-home money. We've talked a lot about the supply chain here, being able to get the parts, the ingredients. I was talking with a guy that's saying, if I'm missing one component of a 6-component product, I can't even start my plant up, and he's missing one small component. We talked about the stepped-up basis and the estate issues. If you've created a business and you've worked from starting this up with an idea and $1,000 or something, and you've fought your way to prosperity, and you want to hand this off to your next generation. Now, through some of the senators and the House members want to do a stepped-up basis and basically break the bank and for you to hand this off to your next generation. And then finally, I think kind of the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back is weaponizing the IRS through our banking system to go out and spy on our small businesses, our families, and our farmers. This is something that is a government that's they talk about how they're pro-small business, and we all know that every big business in America started a small business, whether it was in a garage, a backyard, a dorm room. They all started as small businesses. And that's what's really scary about all of this is the Democrats are trying to crush small business so that big business can prosper. And that ought to scare us all to death. That's the American dream as defined, is that somebody takes money and an idea, takes risks. When they get knocked down, like you all have, you get back up and do it time and time again. And that's the journey of the American dream. It's not a destination, it's a journey. The Democrats' idea of the American dream today is forever dependence on the federal government. That you're not smart enough, you're not intelligent enough, you don't have the wherewithal unless the federal government's engaged in everything you do in all aspects of your business. So I appreciate what you all are doing. This is a truly amazing opportunity, Leader, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. You should go vote, Kevin. But Beth Van Duyne, you're a freshman. You're coming, being a former mayor, working and helping others. You've been studying the bill as well. What are you hearing back home?
Well, I'll tell you, again, being a former mayor of a city that had almost 9,000 small businesses, we've been having roundtables, we've been doing business tours. I have the ability to be on the Small Business Committee as well, and we've been listening to businesses across the country. I've even traveled and listened and had roundtables. We're hearing the same thing. Small businesses are the backbone of this community, the backbone of our country, and yet they seem to be the enemy of this administration. This administration is doing everything it can possibly do to crush small businesses. It will soon be, if this administration has its druthers, that only large businesses are going to be left. We look at the threat right now, the federal government in forcing folks basically not to go to work by competing and paying them more to stay at home. And now we look at this latest bill, which is taking the work requirement away, which is going to further compound the issue. I tried to pass an amendment with the National Defense Authorization Act to look at vulnerabilities in the supply chain. Okay, supply chain is not just an inconvenience. It's crushing small businesses, but it's also a national security issue. This bill doesn't do anything to address that at all. In fact, it's going to be pushing more and more of those jobs overseas. So where we have a national security issue with our supply chains, with making sure that we're having manufacturing jobs and companies here, this bill is only pushing them away, which is going to further our vulnerabilities. I look at what we're doing on the COVID front and how we have crushed businesses, how we're continuing to crush businesses, how in the wake of trying to open businesses back up, all we're doing is threatening them with increased corporate taxes, increased capital gains, increased inflation, and more supply chain issues. Again, I just find that the Biden administration is treating small businesses as if they're the enemy and doing nothing to help you at all, but doing everything to crush you. And basically, it's just to be able to fund and lift up socialist policies that at the end of the day are furthering government to an extent where it has impeded into our personal lives, our professional lives like we've never seen in this country at least. And while we may not have the votes to be able to stop it right now, being in the minority, it's my hope that we're preparing for recovery by taking back the House in 2022.
Thank you, Beth. And David Schweikert, you've been from a business person, from tax proposals, now you serve on Ways and Means. And when I was talking to the chef here, one of the ways that saved him was the employee tax credit, allow people to the flexibility, keep there. You've worked a lot to help small businesses go through. Give us some of your thoughts of the challenges, but some of the successes and solutions we could have for the future.
Yeah, and I may even give you something a little bit more cynical. I mean, whether it be from barbecue or probably very fancy eating there in Huntington Beach, we love and care for people. And we can actually show you, because the Joint Economic Committee, others, we've been trying to take apart the bill and understand what does it do to society. We can show you by the end of the decade, poor people will actually be poorer from this piece of legislation. Your country will be poorer. And the economic opportunity, there's this concept of social mobility. You're poor today, but in America, with certain opportunities, you can move up. The studies are now saying that what the Democrats are doing here by adopting a European transfer model is beyond just the fact you're going to crush small businesses, but you're actually going to crush the relationship of individuals to work. A lot of these transfer payments, actually all the transfer payments are designed to have no attachment to work. So think of some of your business. How many times have you offered someone that has actually had a pretty rough time in life, but you've given them that opportunity? I mean, I started washing dishes, was my first job. And you move up. How many of those people have you given an opportunity? The way the Democrats have designed this, there is no incentive for those populations to come back into the labor market. And big University of Chicago study from a couple of weeks ago basically says the poorest quartile will actually get poorer from what the Democrats are doing. So if you actually care about income inequality, these sorts of things, this is not how you do it. They have great rhetoric, but horrible policies. They will make the country poorer if this passes.
Thank you, David. Let's go to some of our guests. We have Chef Andrew Gruel, who's not only worked the midnight shift at Denny's, to fancy restaurants, to a food truck, to now having 3 different brands of restaurants that he franchises. Slapfish, it's all about freshness. But he went through the pandemic. So the struggles, you think of a restaurant, but think about you had to be in California. And what he did was, though, at the same time, he and his wife started a GoFundMe page, raised more than $500,000 to help those in the food industry who got laid off as well. And he has an outdoor restaurants as well, but those got shut down in California. So he's been through everything. And besides that, he was even a judge on the Food Network. So, I mean, the chef out there. So he does a little of everything. So he got supply chain and others. Talk to us a little about the struggles you went through and the struggles that are going now. And you're putting your own capital in. What does it take for you to invest to create more jobs and more restaurants?
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here today. I always make the joke. I wait for my mom to walk in the room and say, "What are you doing standing behind that man's desk?" But here I am. And look, so I think let me tell my story through the pandemic, because to some degree I think it's a microcosm of what we're seeing on a grander scale, especially being in California. And I think it was Biden who even said in the beginning of his term, he said, "Look, where California goes, we want the country to go." Which somebody running a business in California, that's a pretty scary prospect. So I can consider me as to the crossing over. I'm giving you a piece of the future. But when they shut down outdoor dining a year into the pandemic, right? And what we watched throughout the pandemic, right when it hit, I was waiting for local government, state government to come to us and say, "Look, we're here to work with you. We're here to work hand in hand with you and to figure out our way through this," right? I wanted a consultant. Instead, it was just mandates coming down, mandate after mandate, and then we would turn on the TV and we would see those mandates being kind of, you pick them, you choose them. Nah, they don't have to. They're exempt. They're not exempt. Hollywood is exempt. They're not. And when they shut down outdoor dining in November, a quarter mile down the road from me was a Walmart where you could go into the Walmart, right? People piled on top of each other, hundreds of people. It was like they were playing, co-ed naked Twister in there. And you could order a burger at the Burger King inside Walmart, and you could eat without your mask on, eating the burger, walking around Walmart. But then 400 meters away, I couldn't have people sitting outdoors with tables spaced 10 feet apart, enjoying their food. Even if we were squirting people with antiseptic super soakers. So what I realized was, right, picking winners and losers. And when they shut down outdoor dining, 90% of the restaurants closed in Southern California, and I had hundreds, thousands of people who knew that we were obviously giving out, kind of a helping hand to help these people come to me and say, look, lost my job, and now the government's telling me there's no unemployment benefits available because California misappropriated upwards of $50 billion in unemployment funds. We talk about this misappropriation, SBA running, the government kind of trying to manage these things. And the response from the state was, sorry, when we get the, depending on what happens with the election, we'll be able to refill the coffers. So we raised over $500,000 in denominations of $19 really was the average donation as a small business, as a family, my wife, myself, and my 4 kids. And we were driving around Southern California handing out checks to people in order for them to be able to pay rent, electricity, et cetera. Now that goes to show you, right, small business can step in and do this where government can't do it. And we can actually take that on and we can help out those people who need it. We can give jobs to people. We took on as many employees as we could. And I'd mentioned about the Employee Retention Credit Program. There's a real framework in there that I think is valuable in that I come at this from a nonpartisan perspective, and I think that when we talk about supply chain, labor, and all the issues we're facing right now, there's a lot of kind of refrains and political bombs and words thrown out there like, workers' rights and pay a living wage. No business owner wants to screw their workers, right? Yeah, there's always a couple bad people out there, but on all sides of the aisle. We want to be able to help our team members. Those are the people in our family. We see them every single day, day in and day out. We see their kids. We see their kids. We need the incentives to be able to continue to help them out, right? So if somebody's saying to me, pay them $30 an hour, which interestingly I am offering $30 an hour right now for entry-level pizza cooks and I can't find anybody, $30 an hour, well then we need some sort of an alternate, break towards the bottom line so that we can continue to do that because that's what we want to do and it's small businesses that can do that. So, I kind of take my story and I say, how can we extrapolate this across a much grander scale of restaurants nationally and getting the help that we need in order to both work with workers, get rid of some of these regulations, and then just do what we do best, which is creating jobs, creating opportunities. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of come today and listen and talk a little bit and tell my story. So, excited to see what comes out of this.
We appreciate you coming all the way from California. We appreciate some of that. The bells are ringing. We'll be voting again still, but we got a lot more to debate here. Joe Shamess, co-founder of Flags of Valor. You created in 2015, and you told a very compelling story why. I don't want to step on it. I want you to tell everybody else, but tell us the story why you created, but tell us the struggles, and more importantly, what can we do to help you foster and create more jobs?
Thank you, Leader McCarthy, for having me here today and for hosting this discussion. Flags of Valor is a little bit unique. It's a company that we built specifically to try and solve veteran employment issues, to bolster American manufacturing, and to try and give back to charity. And we did all of that surrounding what we view as the American family crest, which is the American flag. So all of our products have that central component, and they're all made by American veterans. In our workshop, we've employed over 70 veterans since we started in 2015 till today. We've delivered over 100,000 hours of American manufacturing labor, and we've given over $1.7 million to charity in 6 years. And so when we talk about employment issues and the things that we had to endure during the pandemic, it's very, very personal to us because, as you said, these are members of your family. This idea that small business owners are somehow pitted against their employees or taking advantage of their employees couldn't be further from the truth. And so we had to navigate furlough during part of the pandemic. We had to navigate whether we could get a paycheck protection loan or not. What were the available facilities we could use to try and survive the pandemic? I cannot say loudly enough how proud I am of the team that we have and the way we emerged from COVID-19. As far as we're concerned, we're through that at this point. So entering this year and entering a state of high inflation was like a 1-2 punch. COVID, and then you have runaway inflation. And so on average, our input costs are over 20% higher right now than they were this time last year. Some of them are 30 or 40%. We deal in a lot of lumber, so you can imagine that alone is a huge input. Starting wages are up. I don't mind paying higher starting wages. In fact, I like that. But it's got to come from somewhere. And so things that are being discussed, like the pass-through deduction, it's being looked at. The pass-through deduction allowed us to buy high-tech laser manufacturing equipment for our shop. I didn't buy a Bentley. We bought equipment for our shop with the pass-through deduction. We brought in experts to train our team and improve our workforce on the pass-through deduction. So there's a sense of being villainized by being a business owner, and it's frightening because small business accounts for over half of net new jobs in the United States. Well, that's a big deal. And I think you mentioned it, Representative Hern, about this small businesses become big businesses. All our favorite brands, from Coca-Cola to Apple, they all started as small companies with a few employees, and now look at them. And so these are real issues. And we talk about incentives. You know, a 10% bottom line is fairly typical in most businesses. They fight for that 10%. Well, take your inputs and increase all your inputs by 20 or 30%. You have very little left, right? And as I mentioned, most of that you're going to reinvest in your company anyway. And so when those inputs continue to go up, it's terrifying. I will tell you that the only thing I can count on, I think, at this point is that tomorrow I'll wake up, the prices will be higher than they are today, and there'll be more uncertainty because the rules will change again. So every time we feel that we're set and we know what's going on and we can plan around it, the rules change again, and the rules change again, and the rules change again. And we can't continue to take that. I will tell you one thing I would bet on, is I would bet on the American entrepreneur, and I would bet on the American worker, because the people that we've been able to hire are outstanding. They do want to work. They want to earn for their families. They want to grow. They want to promote. They want to take on more responsibility. And as many of them want to own their own businesses themselves someday. We cannot destroy the incentives to do that.
Excellent. Brett, want to introduce your constituent?
Yes. Thank you, Leader McCarthy. And I'd like to introduce a fellow that has become a very good friend and does a lot of great work, not just in Pennsylvania's 12th Congressional District, but other parts of the country. Larry Allison, who operates Allison Crane and Rigging. And with that, Larry, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader McCarthy and everyone else for this opportunity today.
Might be on mute.
My name is Larry Allison, Jr. I'm the president of Allison Crane and Rigging. We're here in Little Williamsport, Pennsylvania, home of Little League Baseball. We also have a location in West Texas, and we are in the oil field business out there with our cranes. Basically, we are an essential business where we keep businesses running. When they break down, they call us. So through the whole pandemic, we really didn't blink at it. We just kept pushing forward through it. We work in different types of industry, whether it's a shop vac corporation or baby diapers, adult diapers, paper towels, aluminum cans, so we work in a very diverse industry, and, there are a lot of blue collar workers. So these guys are, really concerned with these mandates coming across that, and, they're worried about, how is it going to affect their jobs? I do have to tell you, Leader McCarthy, my wife and I just purchased a deli, and a gentleman was retiring. I wanted the real estate, and we ended up with a deli. So he recently passed away, and so we're kind of going at this on our own. But luckily, my wife's family was in the deli and butchering business for quite some time. So we're excited to be able to get that kicked off. But we are concerned about where we're going to get the employees. What are the costs of the employees going to be today with the benefits, and the hourly wages are going to have to be about $20 an hour here to be able to get employees. So we're also in the process of closing on a meat processing plant. We are also closing on a metal fabrication plant. And during the pandemic, I also created a hand sanitizing company as well when we couldn't find hand sanitizer. So I really am trying to get more and more diversified today, getting ready for the next time that, the governor tries to shut us down here in Pennsylvania. It's very scary what could happen next. So we're fortunate to have work, but we're really concerned with the mandates that are put on us. And what can you guys do to help? Take back the house. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, that is excellent. I want to go to, I'll wait till David gets in to introduce Andy, but I want to introduce Jeff Salters with Salty Barbecue. I remember you working at another restaurant, and we were talking, and you were always doing a part of the community, but you were going to take a risk, go out on your own, and you didn't know whether you could make it. You just rented a little place, and now you've got quite a few. But the one thing I've always admired about you, Jeff, no matter what the struggles are, you have a good product, but you always give back to the community time and again. And you've got your family involved in the business. I remember our kids growing up, going to high school together as well. But tell us some of the struggles you see and some of the things that we can do to help you.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it, and everybody in the room there. Appreciate all you guys are doing to help us continue this fight. We are, the rules and regulations are almost to the point where they start to choke you out. We're looking at supply chain issues. We talk about the taxes that are coming down, all those things that are happening. I was speaking to some of your staff yesterday, and just one little thing for us, and we use a ton of them here, are latex gloves. You used to pay $40 for a case of latex gloves. There would be 1,000 gloves, 10 boxes of 100. That case got up to $240 a case last year. I saw a bill come through for $800. I'm like, wow, we must have got a lot of gloves. I called my supplier just to do some talking. I said, how many cases was that? He goes, oh, we sent you 4 cases. Like, what are we doing here? And the same thing, I heard somebody talking earlier about the meat market and the agriculture things that are coming in taxes. As those costs continue to rise, we only have one option, and that's to either go up on our prices or take things off our menu. And the more that this crazy out of touch spending and taxing continues to impact, it impacts the bottom line. I'm happily involved in our community. As Kevin mentioned, we do a lot for our local veteran organizations and several other nonprofits throughout our community, but it's the small businesses who do that. We're the ones that are writing those checks to those little leagues, to those nursing organizations, all those community events. They're coming knocking on our doors. We're the ones that are writing those checks and having them come into our restaurants and setting up dinner, fundraisers for them. And it's when you start to increase the burden, it gets to the place where I have to say no. I can't help you raise $5,000 for your organization. I can't donate an event to you. I don't ever want to get to that place because that's how we built this company. We built this company by being in our community and surrounded by our community and actively participating in every aspect that we can. We're blessed to be in a great part of Kern County of California. We call Kern County it's the good part. Kevin has a great area here. We got a lot of conservatives. A lot of people understand the importance of what a local small business brings to our community, and we have great support here. And we've been very fortunate for that. You're talking about the pandemic last year. One of the things that we did, we created an event called Make a Difference Monday. And in that event, I got some notes here. Last year, we fed over 170 families. We had 10 different restaurants that came on board. And every Monday, we gave out meals to families. People nominated friends and families, and it was, it was great. What you saw was the community coming in, not the government coming in, not the government telling us what to do, but the community and a community of local restaurants and people coming in and say, hey, we want to be a part of that. And that is, as you said earlier, we're the engine, we're the driving force. We're what's going to continue to make this thing work. And we need your support up there in the house. We need to take it back. And we need to, I told the folks earlier, some of the guys that were here earlier before the Zoom started, as we were kind of conversating, that it's instead of death by 1,000 cuts, it's socialism by 1,000 cuts. They could continue to strike at us over and over and over and over. And eventually, if we don't stop this, we won't have small businesses. We won't have freedom. Everything will be controlled. And we'll just be, unfortunately, in the position where we can't help anybody do anything because it'll be the government who will dictate everything.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a very compelling story, but real life experience, just latex gloves going from $40 to $240. I mean, how do you continue to afford that without passing that on to the consumer? You're already paying more for the employee to come work. I mean, and you're in the barbecue business, so you got to cook the ribs before I order them. You got to just make sure I'm showing up that day.
Yeah, and I tell people, we start. Our business is I throw a ton of meat in a smoker and a grill with the hope somebody shows up and buys it. This isn't cook to order food. It's we got to smoke it, we got to prep it, we got to get it all done, and and we hope people come in. Fortunately for us, we've been blessed. We have a great community that supports us here at our restaurants, and but yeah, it's tough. We need to stop this out of control machine up there, and I appreciate the fight you guys are taking on right now to do that.
Well, we appreciate that. David Schweikert, do you want to introduce Andy Ray? Would you like to? Yeah, go right ahead. Your constituent? Oh, look. He's back on here. We got Andy Ray.
Do we have him? Let's see if we get him here.
There's Andy.
I'm here. Yeah, we lost you there for a moment. We were worried about it.
BrightStar Care. Go ahead, Andy.
So I appreciate you having me on here, and I just have been sitting here listening, and it is amazing how similar we are in terms of the challenges we're facing, and yet the different industries we're in. It's kind of mind-boggling. To give some background on myself, I'm privileged to own a BrightStar Care franchise in Mesa, Arizona. BrightStar, if you're not familiar with it, is an organization that was founded by Shelley Sun about 19 years ago. She's taken the business from one location to over 300. We have probably 29,000 employees that work within our employee-owned business. And we get up every day to provide healthcare in the home. It sounds very simple, but I'll build on the glove comment. So I have more than 100 people in the field every day, and all of them come in the office to get their gloves. So it's been an expensive year on that side for me as well. But more importantly, the reason that I got into this is this business in particular here, about 70% of our clientele is veterans. So we spend most of our time in any given week, about 300 plus veterans receive care from my team. We do that for more of a mission-based business than a profit-based business. But back to what we're talking about here, we have to have profit to continue the business going. We've also branched out, and in any given day in the Phoenix Valley, we're testing more than 4,000 or 5,000 children for COVID. We have teams out there today. We provide testing to ensure that they're safe so they continue in school. So the reason for giving that as background is that what we do, like the rest of us here, actually does make a difference to our community. The problem I face is going through the pandemic, it was unknown, it was uncertain. We rolled up our sleeves. Many thanks to all of you with the PPP and other programs that got us through it. But I find myself emerging from the pandemic, heading right into another one that is very clear. Unlike the first one, uncertainty, what are we going to do? How are we going to get through it? This legislation is very clear. And when I take a look at my number one challenge of hiring caregivers, and to give you a little bit of perspective, out of the 9 people in my office, 3 of them recruit 24/7. I spend thousands of dollars in ads to try to get them to come work in an organization. I've almost taken my wage rates up 40%. I provide 401k benefits in order to attract them. And going through that whole process in order to deliver care to the veterans, and I'm extremely worried that if this type of legislation goes through and the disincentives to work continue, where am I going to get the team to do this? And what are my options? The bill raises taxes right when I'm coming out of the pandemic and I'm just now profitable and I need to invest in my business. I have a new phone system I'm installing this week. That'll make myself easier to get a hold of, be a better partner to the veterans who call for care. But in that situation, where does the capital come from if I'm giving it back to the government in the way of higher taxes? The inflation is amazing. I had a caregiver in my office yesterday asking me to please drop her client for 2 years. And I said, well, why? And she explained to me, well, gasoline. It was $3, a year and a half ago, and now it's $4. It's too expensive for me to get to that client. Can I have one closer to my home? So these type of things are very real problems we're facing. And as I listen to all of us, what's confounding to me is why does everybody in this call have a true, actual, factual story of why this is going to hurt us? Yet there's other people across the aisle that feel that it won't. It's just unbelievable to me. So thank you for allowing me to share some of our story. And I wish we move forward, and I'll echo Larry, take back Congress.
Well, thank you, Andy. And also with us today, if you're on Zoom, you can't see, we've got some from the media, from the Washington Times, the Examiner, and Fox News. And I'll open it up to them if you have some questions for the members, for the small business owners. I mean, one thing I hope is conveyed when you heard these stories, the struggles they went through, the government picking and choosing who could be open, the rise of inflation that's happening is, I thought, Joe, you gave a very good point. One thing you count on every day is going to cost more. Big businesses are in a better position to deal with that. And the big business got to stay open where small businesses were closed, and the struggles of where we go. And then you got this bill coming forward to only give us more inflation and raise taxes and challenge some of the smaller ones as well. I hope that came across. But if you could identify yourself, and if you have a question for anyone, please.
Yeah, Zach Alashek, the Washington Examiner. I was just wondering, in terms of the federal vaccine mandates, I think it was the president of the American Truckers Associations. He had said that the requirement for contractors to have it without the testing opt-out could lead to companies actually dropping those contracts. Have any of you heard from your constituents concerns about that, specifically not including the opt-out on testing for contractors?
Heard a great deal, and it's not just in that position. I've heard from people in the military. And what's interesting, you got 17 other vaccines you take in the military, but there's always an exemption, especially if you're a female and you're breastfeeding. And the military right now does not have that exemption when it comes to COVID. And so you've got people who've voluntarily signed up, defending our nation, recently had a baby, and now have to make a choice, can they continue in that career or not? And that's a real challenge. And then from a small business point of view, though, others, not just a general contractor, the president, when he stated out, he said 100 employees or more. And I don't know if some of you have met that criteria. And what is it challenging what you're seeing?
Yeah, well, the industry, specifically for the restaurant industry, just based on what I'm seeing out of Los Angeles County, number one, restaurant business is down 45% since the mandates have gone in place on a local level. But number two, the restaurants, we already can't find the necessary employees just to keep the regular operating business going. And now we have to add units of labor to act as security effectively for people's medical, for their medical decisions, and all you're doing is now using an hourly level employee to stand as the kind of government representative, and they're going to take the slack. There's going to be fights, there's going to be, we already started to see people get violent about this type of stuff. It's unfair to the businesses, and it's unfair to the team members who get put in those positions.
Yeah, and government's making business be responsible. I watch them, they're closing In-N-Out, because In-N-Out's not going to check you, every single person to come in. Your job's there to provide your product, the food for it. I don't know if any other member stepped in, wanted to, from that question?
Well, I can talk a little bit about, I've got American Airlines headquartered in the district, and it's got more aviation employees than any other district in the country, and I've heard from them very directly. America didn't have 4,000 pilots were not vaccinated. And so you think about the long-term effects right before the holidays, what that's going to cause. But also you've got companies like UPS and what they do with our supply chains and the massive disruption that's going to cause to commerce in the U.S. So it's definitely the trucking industry, it's definitely the military, but we're hearing it from everybody.
And we got the supply side, supply chain problem right now. And we're from California. You see the ships sitting out there, and people have contracts, and now we're already short on supply to be able to move it out. You're just adding more time and more cost, more challenge, and a much smaller Christmas. David, and then we'll go to Kevin.
Almost to your question, the Phoenix area, Swift, Knight, trucking based there. Oddly enough, a couple of the large shipping container companies left California many years ago, came to Scottsdale. Had someone complaining to me the other day that when they get certain contracts, they reach out and hire, people that they've do side contracts or additional for excess needs, and now they're fearful. They now have to ask the question: are you vaccinated to be able to carry the container for this company? And it's just creating this weird cascade effect of, at the very moment the president claims we need to get these containers out of the Alameda corridor in LA and hopefully warehouse them in Arizona, a whole segment of the drivers they can't use because how do they certify them? And we're about to make the supply chains even worse with the vaccine mandate.
Yeah, just to add on to what my colleagues have said, it's interesting they used 100, not 99, not 49. It's just arbitrarily picking a number. And what's even more interesting about it, if you use their narrative, follow the science, they don't even ask a business if all 100 of these people are in one location, or is there 100 people across 100 locations. It's with total disregard to the concentration of the workforce, which would almost lend yourself to believe that this is really not about the workforce. This is about forcing individual mandates of vaccination on individual people in America, and they're just using small businesses in America and big business, the politics of it, to force vaccinations to every United States citizen that we have.
Yeah, just a real quick comment. I mean, yeah, in my area, the same problem. We have healthcare, hospitals that are losing healthcare workers. We got a steel manufacturer that's, it doesn't know what it's going to do. But I think the thing that's really concerning to the small businesses I talk to that are less than 100, it's like, okay, so once you get everybody over 100 lined up with vaccine mandates, are we next? this is very concerning to the small businesses because they look like they're next in line to be hit with this. And if they do, they're really in trouble because they don't have the flexibility to be able to shift jobs around and have a few employees not show up. These guys are the 10 to 25 employee shops. When somebody doesn't show up there, that's a big deal because that's a big hit to their workforce. So this is something they're very fearful will roll downhill and get them. And at this point, the way this administration operates, they're probably right. They're next in the crosshairs.
Another question. Yes.
Hi, I'm Harris Alec with the Washington Times. Today, the Tax Foundation released a new report showing that I think if this bill were to go past as written in the framework that President Biden has released, 103,000 jobs would be killed over the next decade. Obviously, the burden on that would fall significantly on small businesses. How do you go about making that argument to people, especially when the administration is pushing this narrative that this bill is 100% paid for, that it will specifically target the wealthy and major corporations, when it's really the small businesses who are going to face the majority of that burden?
No one can say this bill is 100% paid for. It's not even scored. But let me first go to some Ways and Means members here. Mr. Schweikert, do you want to start with this? Jackie?
There's actually, if I remember, Tax Foundation only did a portion of it because we actually had some of the manufacturers saying 1.3 million jobs in the first 24 months would be lost. We actually just now had the University of Chicago study that said you've just taken some of the poorest Americans and basically screwed up their incentives to participate in the economy. So there's almost a brutally disingenuous narrative being given by the left of the devastation this legislation is going to commit to the poor, to economic growth, to actually even labor force participation. It's just a cascade of bad. And as Leader just said, we actually don't have an honest scoring because a lot of it is fake math. When you're going to use a pay-for of a pharmaceutical rebate that the President Trump proposed that was never, ever going to become law, and that's one of the pay-fors, you realize how much of this is just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, just to add to that, one thing business likes is predictability. And so when you have the uncertainty in the tax code, small businesses are going to invest less in new technologies, new ways forward. We heard Joe talk about increasing production through CNC type machinery to do this kind of printing that he does and manufacturing. But it's really kind of crazy. And I think also small businesses are seeing that taking a risk with this administration is not something they want to do, especially when you hear the Biden administration through his spokesperson, Jen Psaki, say that for businesses to pass on the increased cost to the consumer in the form of a price increase is both absurd and unfair. That's what people in business do. When the prices go up, the American people have to pay for it. That's why we have inflation today. And when you hear that and you hear the naivety of the administration thinking that when sales are down 25%, well, that means your profit's only down 25%. Again, they don't understand what it means to have a loss of revenue where you're actually upside down in the break-even analysis. So we just have a real incompetent amount of people in this administration that don't understand how business actually works.
Jackie, you got any other points then?
Yeah. In my district, they're panicking. So my district is the second largest manufacturing district in the country. We're the RV Hall of Fame. We're the RV center of the universe. We produce record numbers right now. And almost probably thousands of companies make those little widgets that go inside those big RVs. And I'll tell you what, they're terrified. The minute that even the concept, when President Biden talked about we might be thinking about a mandate, my phone filled up with small business owners that were terrified, literally saying that I lose 50% of my workers tomorrow. What am I going to do? How are we going to do X, Y, Z? And that's exactly what's happening. You know, I've seen both Secretary Buttigieg, who is from my area in my district, and I look at the president, sent him a letter and basically said, you know what this looks like. And I've seen them both on stage in a cavalier attitude, shrugging their shoulders and making a joke about Christmas. This isn't Christmas. And when my district and those drivers and those people that are buried right now with orders and their parts are sitting out there in the Pacific Ocean don't think it's funny. because the pain transfers all the way through my district to my geographic area, which is Indianapolis, Detroit, and Chicago. And that just keeps rippling through. My district doesn't trust this government. The decisions they have made have not been good for my district in manufacturing. That trickle down in my district is horrific. We can go from the top of the world to the bottom of the barrel here in no time because we're so big. And, you know, my district's looking for hope. My district's looking that we take the House back next November and that we have a speaker in Kevin McCarthy and we do what we say we're going to do. We're going to repeal, we're going to rebuild the country, and we're going to include the American worker at the absolute top of the top and not the bottom of the bottom. I've never seen what's going on right now and the fear that's in the American worker because they feel like the whole country turned on them, and obviously the Biden administration has led the way.
We got one more. Another question? Yes.
You're fine. Thanks. Okay, so in August, the Treasury Department said that an estimated 97% of small businesses that file as S corporations won't see any tax hikes. I wanted to know if you thought this analysis was accurate and if you had an idea how many small businesses across the U.S. are going to see these tax hikes.
I don't know how they say that without even knowing what's in the bill yet. I mean, and we just sat around and listened to these small businesses. Joe just tell you the one thing you agree on: tomorrow it's going to cost more. So the actions that we know they're going to take, spend trillions of dollars, which creates greater inflation. So that's going to cost them more. We watch that they want to raise revenue. So they're going to hire 87,000 IRS agents to go after people who spend or make $28 a day. And part of this is how they pay for this bill. And you know who they're really going after? Your employees. They're going after the people who are making tips to try to save. So they have to pay more for the person to work there. If they raise the rates, the competition is tough for manufacturers. I mean, you're giving an incentive for somebody in China to compete against you now. I can't believe with a straight face anybody can give that report. I mean, let's let some of the small businesses talk a little bit about this.
I don't think that most of the people that are describing this position understand what an S-Corp is. I have an S-Corp. I have 20 employees. And so it's just a different way of structuring a business. It's a pass-through entity, just like an LLC. So I think fundamentally there's a big misunderstanding that people hear the word corporation, they assume that you're General Motors. So I find that disappointing. It's never been more difficult to survive as a small business. And so if these policies continue to be discussed or worse, they're enacted, it's not just going to be a loss of jobs that we were describing earlier, the 100,000+ jobs. It's going to be a loss of the business, the creating the jobs. And so a loss of incentive will absolutely impact this. And taxing S-Corps is just another example of that.
Does anybody online want to talk about that? I know we've got two business owners here, but does anybody who's dialed in want?
Did you hear the question? The reporter asked, there was a report came out that said some 97% of S corporation businesses would not experience a tax increase. Is that pretty accurate to your question? Yeah. And I think Joe's point was, first of all, I don't even know how you'd know that, because you have to understand the individual that actually owns the company's tax structure and where they're at and their income level. But since the S corps are taxed at the personal level, not at the corporation or at the business level, again, I think when you look at overall, having served on the Small Business Committee for 2 years, and Joe mentioned this earlier, that the vast majority of the businesses in America, 30 million in America, are small businesses. So about 10% of all Americans have a business out there, the 30 million. So that means 90% of Americans truly don't understand how the structure of a pass-through entity actually works. And I think that's why the Democrats are capitalizing on attacking small businesses, because it's an easy target. And that's the unfortunate thing. And that's why corporations, major corporations come up here and fight every day, because people understand, again, as Joe mentioned, that they think everybody's General Motors.
I guess I would just like to say, when you're talking about taxes, I mean, inflation's a tax, but also there's things in here that are carbon taxes. They're also going to tax cows and cattle. So you're looking at everything that's included in this bill. It's a tax on the small business owner. And here's the thing that really shocks me. I I mean, every politician that campaigns for office says they care about jobs. Well, you can't be pro-jobs and anti-business. Okay, they're not mutually exclusive. So if we really want to look at what's going on here, they're attacking the job creators like the people that are on this call today because the inflation's out of control, energy prices are going out of control, and you look at all the other things hidden in this bill that they're going to have to pay for. And businesses aren't bad people. We need to put a face to these small businesses. They're our friends, they're our families, they're members of our community. And they try to say business like it's a bad thing. It's not. That's what gets the job done in America. So, excuse me.
No, hey.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
You were just. Go ahead. Yeah, when you were talking about that tax on the cattle and the other industries, that's a direct tax to a small business, especially in my business, in the barbecue business. Meat, beef, pork, chicken, that's all we do. And so it's a direct tax to us. It directly affects what we can or cannot do. And it goes right to that bottom line, the inflation. We have to fight, and we have to educate the citizens of this country, our employees. I talk to my folks all the time. I sat down with them, had meetings with them, and I said, I tell them, look at your pay stubs. See what you made? See what you brought home? Careful how you vote. Makes a difference.
I'm on the small business committee, and we had the small business administrator testifying before us at a hearing. And I asked the business administrator, I said, you have all of these fiscal policies coming down from this Biden administration. You've got all of these fiscal policies. Can you tell me what the impacts are going to be on small business? Can you tell me what the impacts are going to be on the threat of the corporate income tax, on the increase in the capital gains? I asked them all of those questions about what was in this bill. You know what her answer was? I don't know. And I said, if as the administrator for SBA, you're the one who's supposed to be the advocate, you're the one who's supposed to be the champion of small businesses, if you are not advising this administration on these deals and what the impact will be on small business, who is? You know what our answer was? I don't know.
Thank everybody, especially the small businesses that were here, very productive. Let's continue this conversation. I want to thank you for continuing. Come back every day. We'll be talking more about this bill. It's a huge bill. What's in it? The sad part is the damage that's in it, and we can do better than this. We really can. And we'll take what we've heard from these small businesses, continue to apply them to make sure tomorrow is actually better than today, not more expensive. Thank you all.